So I wanted to talk about, I guess, propositional thought, philosophy. So what is somebody trying to do when they speak to you, especially with a belief, about a belief? And you're fundamentally offering the person to focus in on an aspect of the reality and control things from that area. And so for the most part, you're born and you grow up and your identity is that of your family. And you control the world as that thing, as a son, as a daughter, or whatever. And then you go out into society and you become, like a student. And you get a role in that society. And you move things from that position. Like if you're a doctor, you influence and push on doctor things, or if you're a carpenter, you influence and push on carpenter things. And then some people some people fall out of their role, right? And this is a shift in awareness. This is considered an awakening, right? This is an awakening. Is when people step outside of their role and look at the larger picture, right? Like, I'm not just a doctor, I'm like looking at what the whole hospital is doing. I'm not just a scientist, I'm looking what the scientific establishment is doing. I'm not just a son or a daughter, I'm looking at what the family lineage is doing. Looking at what the family as a whole is doing. You step outside of your role, right? And so this is kind of like in defiance of the Father. And when you step outside of your role in this way, right? When you have this kind of awakening, which is often it's brought about by trauma. It's brought about by seductive or enticing speech. The first time you read an author that really makes you think about things, right? This is a developmental stage and a developmental leap that people have to go through. And when you go through it the first time, it's very, people need to talk about it a little bit more, because it is like, the leap itself is similar in profundity and importance when it happens to sex, the first time having sex. Right, and you'll see there's all sorts of social problems about people making that sexual leap, and there's all sorts of social problems about people making that leap outside of themselves. Because when you step outside of yourself, you go, well, where do I look at the world from out here? Like, you don't have context. Right, so then once people make that step outside of themselves, they're entering into that mythological landscape of Promethean stuff and Kronos and defying the Father, Genesis, the fall. You're taking a step outside of the institution, of the pattern, of the whatever. You're biting the apple of the fruit of knowledge, right? So you could be very high up even in a scientific establishment and never bitten this apple to where you really lose context, right? This is a life crisis. You fall apart, you go insane when this actually happens. So, and everyone goes, oh, well, why aren't the masses awake and all that stuff? And it's like, because they can't be without the world ending. right? You can't have every cell in your body lose context so that they wake up and then they see the meta context. You can't be participating and awake at the same time, right? The cells in my body have to a certain degree be asleep, or maybe wake up in a limited fashion while I'm asleep or something, right? We can't have everybody losing context of, like, my dream of my ego can't lose control of the context of my hands at any point without the whole thing, like, having seizures, right? That's what happens when you lose context. So you'll, like, the vast majority of people are asleep in this way, and they can't digest or consume or take in or anything information that causes, like, what you would want to cause an awakening. And so it's just the body stays there and it mocks the different types of tropes that are, like, trying to precipitate some sort of awakening or some sort of revolutionary thing or some sort of rebellion or whatever, right? That rebellion from the mundane into the infinity, which some people use the psychedelic door out or whatever. There's a lot of people that different traumas take you out of the mundane into the infinity, right? There's a lot of groups that, like, there's certain areas of the body or certain factions that are all about awakening. They don't see anybody as anything. They wake people up. They abuse. They do what we see as torture and all that. But they have there's bunches of peoples and entities and groups and schools of thought that are definitely like, they've lost context, you could say, and it's hard to evaluate them as good or evil. Or, I mean, I get, like, it's obviously evil from the context of just normal human, right? From the context from which we all, like, whatever, right? And so you have there's a massive contextual breakdown happening right now, where this type of analysis, this type of thought is not that far removed from anybody's mind anywhere, right? That more than anything else is what is precipitating or foreshadowing that this is the end of the world, right? We're all in this collective body and it's losing context. And the only time that happens, like, to your hand or to your cells, the degree to which we're losing context is, it's the end, right? For we are everyone works together at, like cells in a body. So, like, civilization, culture, nations, and all that is infinitely complex. Nobody understands it. It's like this intertwining network of relationships all the way down to the whatever. The economy steers it. The electricity helps it, right? But the only reason everybody's working together to keep everything going is this sub-context that's accessed more philosophically, emotionally, intellectually. It's underneath that layer. The layers of social control and power aren't doing it. Like, the politicians don't steer the nations exactly any more than the slave driver steers the slave. Like, the slave's personhood steers the slave, and it has to consider, right? The nations consider the politicians. The nations consider all the inputs on them, and they might be, like, enough that it operates as a means of, like, strict control. But it's not where this all comes from. Right, and the fact that language and philosophy and proposition is capable of getting down to this level of, like, discourse is only because the dream is shattering. Like, the dream is shattering, the world is ending, and so we're entering in that ending of the world is within which there's nobody that's just waking up. I go to school. I am a son. I am a daughter. I'm a student. This is my family drama. This is my narrative and my mythos and stuff like that. All that's breaking down for everybody, and the mythological arcs are flooding in, which is what happens at death, right? And so you'll see, I'm suggesting that everyone take the standpoint of water, to take the position of the soul, which ultimately I think means to be baptized into Christ or whatever, into truth. But if you take the position of the water, you can survive the decay of the body. And so the body is dying, right? The world is obviously ending. I don't know. The context is over. It's not, it's not, who knows, like something. The context is done. So right now it's the shift of identity. You can't identify as a nation as the nation falls apart. You can't identify as a lineage of a species as the civilization collapses, right? So there's all this free identity going on, and that used to happen in very specific instances, like just to a few members of society or a few whatever. There's the only reason anybody would be motivated to even sort of ingest or take in these sort of ideas, and ideas of enlightenment or spiritual ascension or salvation, or like any of these terms that people are grappling with, of how to survive the complete loss of context, how to survive death, right? When you want to be a carpenter, like you just learn it, you're interested in woodworking, saws, tools, right? It's only when you notice that your world is ending that you're interested in religion, consciousness, awareness, philosophy, right? The world, like the world has to end. You're interested in what is, everyone's simple. Everyone's simple. So it's like the water, the awareness of your body is only interested in what's presented to it. So if you want that awareness to master something weird, you have to present it to it like weird stuff, and then when that's presented to it, it takes interest, and so your mind or your consciousness naturally will want to read about or hear certain things. So if you just look at the amount of people that are interested in consciousness, interested in awareness, interested in time, interested in these things, is because of the loss of context, because of the end of the world. And people naturally, intuitively see this the same way that they naturally and intuitively, like all, animals run from a natural disaster. You feel it. So you can look at like what your body is interested in. What will the water pay attention to? What will you pay attention to? What sort of stuff? And then from this point, there's like when you're aware, once your awareness leaves the body, right? Like once you leave the context of society, there's kind of no going back. You have to get eaten or consumed by society again at this other level, or you're eaten by another society, another thing, or you turn spiritual. Like, just look at what happens to all the people that lose context. That's the thing that is, like, if you were going to go, oh, why are drugs dangerous to society? And they force the person's awareness into loss of context. But that loss of context is the position from which all that we want people to lose context, right? You want to lose the context of the body so that you can take in if you lose the context of a cell, you can take in the context of the body as a whole, right? So that's the thing that staves off the end of the world, is like, as that context is lost, as you eat of the fruit of that knowledge, that you eating the fruit, it could also be God eating you, and you die to the self and take on the context of the larger meta being. So, you could have the earth losing context, which you would say is falling apart, but also simultaneously, an awakening into that larger context. And so it's this entire level of reality that's like magical and incomprehensible the first time you take a glimpse of it, or you see it, or whatever. the heavenly realm, or the way that the moment is whatever. And as in the first time you see it is like it's your first sexual experience, right? But then it becomes routine. Like it's something you check into every week, or like whatever, the same way that if you get into a relationship. And at that point, checking into that larger context is no longer, it's not exact, it's still that divine sexuality, but it's more of a responsibility or a duty at a certain point. Or I assume after you get old enough, you no longer do that, because you're like preparing to dissolve into it, right, with old age or whatever. And so as you see it, it's like it's cycles within, it's fractal. The world's fractal, and you see the fractals immediately. It's not just some idea that you read about. And so it's like the context of Christ. Like, you see the world through the eyes of Christ, which could be thought of as the collective deified body of humanity, what everyone's coming together as a whole. But then also there's things taking a bite out of that. So like, if as an individual, as you consider, right, as you create, you can have other things come and eat you. And that's what happens with people. They lose context, and it seems like they're taken hold of by non-human interests, the bad guys. That's basically something has come and bitten them out of their context, like we traditionally call a demon. And then they become part of that thing's body. Their context is dissolved, and then they become part of another creature's body. And this is the war of the gods and all that. The mythological realm. This is packaged inside of every moment, right? It's fractal. know, and it's dangerous, psychedelic. That's why the internet and stuff is so tightly controlled. Because if somebody figures out a way to start injecting truth into a body of lies, it blows up. Like everyone loses context. Like you're even everyone's susceptible to it, right? Like the super weapon of mind control over the nations. Even the people doing the mind control, if they're exposed to the wrong ideas, they lose context. All right, I have to use my GPS. I need the screen.